There's a question in the back. Let's go.
Yeah, this question is for David. What's the difference between clinical, or like a master's in counseling psychology versus clinical psychology? And also, I've kind of like another question. I know you said you emphasize like getting a doctorate if you can, but I guess what are, because I know you have 2 masters, but what are the merits of getting just a master's as opposed to getting a doctorate?
The differences between the two, the counseling degree that I got emphasized more kind of a hands-on approach, and so it was much more actually based in providing clinical services. The clinical degree was much more traditional, probably the pre-part of what you probably did. So it had a much stronger research emphasis and was, how else to say, more formal. And I'm really glad that I did both, because the two hand in hand provided me a much better basis for doing the work. The guy who was, like, in this case, the guy who did the legal stuff was actually Dick Leslie, the guy who did all the legal work to help build the marriage and family therapy licensing. And so, I think it really depends on the particular program itself. I was really fortunate. The people who were training, were doing the actual training for the class, were people who were, for all the courses, were people who were in private practice a lot. The folks who were doing the trainings for the clinical psych program didn't really have that much real hands-on in private practice day in, day out. And I felt like I was fortunate to get people who every day did private practice. And so if you were to take it to the next level of, well, how did you phrase the doctoral part of it?
Like, why would someone get their master's only instead of getting a doctorate?
Well, if you know that your terminal degree that you want to get is a marriage and family therapist, you only need to have that master's to get your marriage and family therapy license. You do not need a doctorate. So then I would, again, kind of look more at yourself and say, what is it I'm looking for? And if I was going to be trying to pick a program, as I said, I think the programs do a great job with public relations. And so if you look at a website, you're going to see really great PR in a lot of different programs. What I would want is people who I know are going to be hands-on, actually doing the work that I want to do when I'm done. So it's less about saying, well, gosh, even what are the names there? I want to see that people are actually committed to doing this same work that I'm interested in doing. Every X number of years, there's it's either in Anaheim or I forget where else it is, but there's it's the evolution of psychotherapy is held. It's I don't know, it's every other year or every few years, whatever it is, and it's huge up at the LA Convention Center, and it's huge. But the people that are oftentimes the main presenters, and these are like every big name you will ever read about in psychotherapy. But a lot of them aren't even involved with therapy anymore in any way, or have written theoretical papers that are seminal papers, don't get me wrong. But if you go and you kind of listen to them, a lot of them are not involved with patients or clients anymore in any way. So it's kind of important to start to become a person who's involved with the field, and you can do that pretty early on. You can start to, UCSD's got one of the best libraries you'll ever find. Start to go look through some of the papers that are there and the stuff that's current there, and it's way cool. You'll see things that'll hopefully excite you about what's there, and it helps you to get a feel for what you're looking at. So in terms of deciding that, I would start to look at what it means to be in the field, whether it's a psychologist or whether it's a clinician or a researcher, and start to see what it looks like to become that professional now as much as you can. As Lisa, as Lisa said, if you could go meet with somebody who's there, and actually have a session with somebody just to see what it feels like to hear them working with you, and take, we all have enough things we can talk about, so just go in and have a session with somebody and see how they work with you and see what that feels like. It's a cheap investment, really.
It's less time, it's less money, and it's quicker where you're out the door and actually starting to work with people, no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's more time, it's a lot more money, and a lot longer before you're working with people to be a psychologist. But I think there's more doors that will open if you're a psychologist. Not that there aren't plenty of doors at other levels, just what you yourself need and want in the picture of what you're looking for, what you want in your life. I can tell you at the VA, out the door was a job available for beginning psychologists, started at $89,000, included full benefits, and they paid $30,000 of your student loan per year. That was the first year. That was pretty good. Now, those aren't frequent opportunities, but that's pretty good for you get your degree and go to work. To start at a professor level, you're looking at about $75,000 with full benefits and a pension sometimes. So those are hefty things to weigh out too. There's a new degree that's being added for psychologists where you can also get a master's in psychopharmacology, where in many states now, psychologists are beginning to be able to prescribe medications. It's not yet here in California, but it will be. It's just a really, I think, a matter of time. So it's what, you know, back to what you're saying, what are your needs, what are your wants, what kind of doors do you want to open, where would you like to work?
Right here.
This is probably a dumb question, but I just wanted to know, or like, for you to explain us how you prepared for the master's program and like some things you would suggest that we should do so it'll help us get into the master's program.
I would check a school that looks interesting to you, and they'll have a list of prerequisites. Check them out. What do you have, what do you don't have? And if there's some coursework you need to catch up on, go to your local JC if they've got them, because that's a very inexpensive way to get that work done, and fill in those blanks. A lot of times they are looking for some clinical experience, like volunteering at some of the places we've all talked about. Fill in those blanks. But the schools themselves that you're thinking of going to will all have different prerequisites, so you can kind of see what they want and start filling those things in.
You know, I did most of the therapy for one of the law schools here in town for about a decade. And so I had a kind of a luxury, I thought, of getting to talk to law students in a similar way that we're talking to you guys today. And there was a kind of a common flaw, I thought, in all the graduate programs for law as there are for psychology. And same thing as it happens in engineering as well. You will almost certainly get trained to be a great professional at any of these programs. But you will almost equally certainly be not trained in business. So you would be really wise to start off by building the best business plan you can figure out how to build before you ever even get in. And that means, if you don't know how, certainly you can find parents, friends, or here on campus, whatever you can, to start off by creating, what is it that I'm going to be doing this? Because I'm going to be in, how am I going to finance it? What's my investment here? How am I going to get my return on investment? So what kind of a position am I looking for afterwards? And now what you'll end up with is you'll create a roadmap for what this looks like. And I know it's a little bit hard to do that because I'm just going to go to school. Do not think of this as school, you guys. Think of this as a business investment. If you were going to build a restaurant, if you were going to start off in a restaurant, you'd think, how am I going to capitalize this investment? How many people am I going to be employing? You're employing yourself. You are creating a piece of something that you are investing in, and you are that commodity once you're done. That commodity where you have a license or you have a degree or whatever, and now you're going to have to figure out how am I going to turn that into something that's a great investment? And how am I going to market that? And who am I going to market to? So that hopefully before you're done, you will have networked with lots of professionals. You'll have an idea of what specialization you're going to go towards. And particularly in this day and age, if you're in San Diego, there's, I don't know what it's, 3,000 or 4,000 therapists. So I have people say, well, I just thought I'd hang my shingle out. No. You're going to hang your shingle out with 1 month of experience against thousands of people that have expertise in every tiny little niche area. So what you would want to do is build a niche ahead of time so that by the time you are done, you have become an absolute expert in ADD or whatever it is that you treat. So that now you have already given tons of talks. Hopefully you've done research, you've become knowledgeable, and you have built a niche that is yours, it's bulletproof. Now people think, well, isn't that going to keep me from getting other people? No, what it's going to do is it's going to give you something where you have a really high percentage chance of marketing yourself on the web and everything else that you can to get that one area so that you might get referrals in that area. And then as you meet with families, they're going to go, well, do you know anything about anxiety disorders too? Do you know, my sister or my brother or my whoever, they're married and they're having some problems. Do you think you could talk with them about their marriage? Well, gee, maybe I could. And so slowly but surely, your practice evolves into something bigger. But so what you want to build, if you're, and this is true because whether you're going to end up going down the road of having other elements in your practice of being, somebody who maybe, works in academia or whatever it may be, you want to start off at the very beginning of building a business plan first. And that allows you then to select what school that might fill those needs. It allows you to, prepare for your master's degree or your doctoral degree or whatever it may be, because otherwise you kind of get the cart before the horse, horse before, whatever it is. Cart before the horse. Cart before the horse, where you've gotten your degree, you've gotten this thing, you're now doing your hours, and you go, oh my God, I do want that job at the VA hospital, or how am I going to fund a pension, or how am I going to do this, or how am I going to do that? And now you're having to go back and do other things. Whereas if you take the time on the front end, don't act impulsively, really think it through. I mean, I'll tell you, I see a couple of guys sitting here. You could not be in a better place. I'm a dude, okay? I'm a guy. I'm a guy's guy, too. I mean, I've run marathons. I taught furniture building out of Palomar College. I do all kinds of things. And so when a guy sits in front of me, I'll tell you, he's expecting somebody who's, when he just kind of comes online, he's expecting somebody who's going to be either effeminate or whatever, that's not going to be that. And he's kind of taken aback when he can talk about stuff that's really he always tests limits with me a little bit. Then when he finds out he can talk about all that stuff, because he's a SWAT guy or he's whoever else, now we can talk about the fact that there's been domestic violence in his home, and he trusts me. And I have probably as many men in my practice as anybody in the county. And I take great pride in being able to help our culture change in great ways. And I encourage you to think about advantages you may have in a business like this, what niches that you may have because you know something about it. Maybe you come from a step family, or maybe you come from a family where there's a certain challenge, and you could use that to your strength or your advantage in some way. But plan ahead of time, and then you can do really remarkable things. But it is, I don't care whether you're going down this road, and maybe you are remarkably detail-oriented. Maybe you're an engineer at heart and you found this other niche. I mean, like I said, I can build furniture. I can do detail work. I don't particularly like paperwork, but when I have to, damn, I can do it. I can fill that blank. And so knowing yourself well enough to know, yeah, I like interactive stuff and all that, but frankly, I am kind of an engineer at heart. There's a reason my kid can do chemical engineering stuff. I went to UCSD, I could do this thing. So I can kind of do that stuff okay. Know yourself well enough to know. It's like we are all saying in some way, if you kind of really reflect more on yourself than which program or that, and really get to think about yourself, you really could find a good niche in this thing. But that's the corner to it all, is really knowing who you are. It can't be an impulse thing, because that's how people end up walking out of the field, because, well, this wasn't everything I thought it was going to be, then you weren't thinking about you. That, which is really, it sounds completely narcissistic, but it kind of better be at the front end. That's how you get someplace in this thing.